I'm psyched that Worcester Addresses Childhood Trauma is moving into a more training and consulting type space away from an already saturated direct service model, right? We know direct service is impactful in the ways that it is, but we know there's a lot of people doing it, and there's a lot less people that are doing trauma training, talking about mental health, changing systems, running groups to help people talk about it, running trainings to help people really understand these topics and how they play out in their lives, right?
Agree. Oh, I think what we've really learned too is that people don't know about trauma and how it's showing up in their life. Um, and I can say that with all confidence because I didn't know, even with expertise in trauma, kind of with professional training, with experience in the field, I did not completely get it until I myself was experiencing it personally firsthand.
And Amy, you're a social worker. That
Right.
can't be understated, right? You had, like you said, you have the education, you have the professional training. Um,
Even
and so
in social work school, it's not people haven't landed kind of where I've landed, that trauma is one of the underlying root causes of mental illness and distress, anxiety, depression, all of that. Um, Really often there's a trauma underneath. And I feel like it's taken me so many years to even just figure out that the ways we're addressing it, the ways that we're seeing it, um, aren't as authentic as they need to be if we're going to go somewhere, if we're going to move it, right? Like it really has this approach of being detached and objective. There's value in that, but there's not learning in that. Like that level of understanding isn't there when you take that medical model approach of gathering symptoms and holding it up against the checklists and the assessment tools. Um, that I bought into that myself, like completely. And now I really do see how that has fallen short. And I think that's what is exciting and alive about doing the teaching, the training, the consulting, is helping other people see what is already there, right? We're just, because we have a different vantage point, we can help people see it differently. And when you do see it differently, you can detach from it. Deb, that's, one of the things that you really are good at showing, is how when you see it for what it is, it doesn't get you as much. It doesn't harm you as much.
Yeah, I feel like when people understand the playbook aspect of how certain niches of trauma work, or trauma in general, then they internalize it less and say, "Oh, this is how the system works. This isn't me." And if they can get to that point, then it can help a lot with detaching from it, and yeah, getting to a point of progress and healing.
That is so well put.
something that's just coming up for me, Deb, I've done your walked through some of your coursework and your content around workplace abuse and workplace bullying. And one of the things that just came for me was how I can apply some of that work to some of the heartbreak I feel around the city of Worcester letting me down, and feeling like heartbroken by a city and by a series of political decisions, a series of voter decisions, and things that really led to a lot of gentrification that really felt like really not values aligned for me. And then feeling like at work I'm having some challenges, but also personally living in this city and living in this space, I'm struggling because the system wasn't designed for health. It wasn't designed for success. And all of these behind the scenes actors, like these systems, are are influencing me and impacting my emotional management, my mood, and then how that comes into health outcomes and all the rest of it.
Mm.
And so I feel really excited to kind of explore some of that, and just really feeling still a little heartbroken, coming out of a job that I
Absolutely.
loved and in a city that I loved. Yeah.
And that's such a like big trauma realization too, because there's heartbreak to go around. And most often we first blame ourselves, and we are hurt ourselves, and we feel like we did something wrong. We let ourselves down. We let down our larger purpose or vision. And then, as you guys were both saying, when you see this operating at other levels in the same ways, in many settings, and you can then you see like, oh, this isn't an Amy thing or a Kelsey thing or a Deb thing. This is bigger than that. And we really like, there's intention behind us not seeing these bigger pictures. And it takes like conversations like this. It takes people coming together from different ways of knowing, believing each other, trusting each other, valuing each other, and talking about it to be able to see. Because when I can see it for you, I can see it for Deb, and then that helps me see it for myself from a little bit more, as the to use Deb's word, like detachment. And I don't feel so personally like I messed it all up and I brought it all on myself. I see like, oh wow, this structure set me up to feel to have these behaviors and these feelings, and that's happening to lots of other people too.
Absolutely. And I think what you're talking about, it's happening to other people. And if and that's why the work that we're doing matters so much right now, right? Because sharing this education with just one person has the potential to impact whole communities, whole families, right? As we start to shift that perspective and understanding and awareness around how trauma and how systems of oppression operate in our lives. Yeah, it's not great stuff. Sometimes it feels easier to put a blindfold on and not see it. But once we can see it, we can really say, oh, it's not me. And we don't have to keep internalizing how those systems impact us on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. And not seeing it doesn't make it go away.
Thank you.
Right? Like that's
Yeah.
the other thing.
I think like the connection piece is huge in tackling things in group settings, because that's where you can really hear that somebody else gets it and you can feel seen and understood. But like during the healing process, when we go through that, like in naming the losses or naming the value disconnect or misalignment, and then like understanding the nuances of that can really like help us further process what we've gone through, and then ultimately get us to a point of like, this is the system, this is how my values are different from the system, and then like tap into like our personal power of like, okay, how do I want to live my life intentionally, that based on what I've learned about what my values are, and that this previous space does not, is not fit for me.
Absolutely.
Really well put. It really is cool. As you were saying that too, I was thinking about the idea of perspective and how like you cannot see your own stuff, right? It really just is what that, like there's just no two ways about it. It's super hard to see your own stuff. And that is why in groups, like I can always see, oh, Deb, that's what's happening to you right now. Or Kelsey, of course it went like that, knowing you and knowing this. But you can't see that for yourself, no, any more than I can see for myself the ways that, oh yeah, look, I got myself in that same situation again because I didn't even see the situation in the first place. So how am I gonna not fall in that same hole?
You're so right, Amy. And one of the things that I keep coming back to is we're told you go to therapy. Therapy is what fixes or what helps you get that perspective on yourself. And what we're learning more and more is therapy is not accessible to many folks, and therapy is not a one size fits all answer. There can be a lot of healing that happens in group work outside of a therapy space or in a training in a community, right? Because those are additional spaces in our day to day lives where we get to have those reflection moments, even if that reflection is coming, oh, that's so and so's behavior, not mine. But building that awareness about other people's behaviors still helps us with our own behaviors and our own and making sense of our own experiences. But just really feeling like the work we're doing right now is expanding, and it's helping to provide more reflection spaces in day-to-day life beyond just I have my once a week therapy appointment, if I'm lucky enough to even get an appointment with a therapist, because provider wait lists and insurance reimbursements are huge barriers there. And this work doesn't have those barriers, right? We're not operating as therapists. We don't want to be, but we are creating those reflection spaces for folks to understand what's happening and what's going on in their lives and the lives of their families and community.
I love that you said that piece about therapy as this sort of model, that our go-to model, because, I have always had discomfort with that model, with the recognition that the only source of information you have in that relationship is the person themselves. And as a person, like, I realized there's a lot of things I didn't see or understand as I was bringing them forward, right? That I only saw them or understood them from my own limited perspective. And so I'm going to tell my therapist, or if I'm going to be the therapist, I only have that one source of information. And that's part of what the problem is. So the whole idea of that has been our solution, to me, just really reinforces that these are individual people problems, because these are not individual people problems. This is not a problem of Kelsey or a problem of Deb. This is a much bigger than us as individuals. And it almost feels harmful when we buy into that model of, oh, you're the problem, go see a therapist and maybe they can help you get fixed.
Yeah, that individual model is like, yeah, in therapy, in courts, in like reinforce so much of teaching us that, yeah, we individually are the problem, when if we address these issues collectively, because they are collective systems issues, then, it just makes so much more sense.
Absolutely. Ah, thank you both so much for this beautiful conversation, and how freeing it feels to be sitting here right now talking with you and being like, oh yeah, I can take another moment to take another deep breath, because even though I know all this information, I've known it for a while, I keep learning, I stay curious, it still is like, oh, that reminder is once again another relief. And I'm appreciating it today in this moment with the two of you, of like, oh, all of those things acting against us, and we continue to build lives that we love and appreciate and feel more values aligned when we can.
And I love that we landed it on, we got to do it collectively to do it, right? Like, these are not individual problems. And the way we really hit it is to do it all together. And luckily we like doing that too, and it feels good. So thank you. That was both of you, like, that lots of beautiful stuff was said that really rings true. And hopefully it will resonate for listeners, and people will want to tune on in to learn more about how we are seeing trauma show up for ourselves and people everywhere.
Absolutely.
All right. Recording stopped.